Hi, this is Dr. Rami. Today I'm going to talk about robotics process automation, RPA fundamentals. First, allow me to thank and introduce my appreciation to Tedra Virtual Academy. Let me introduce myself before we start our learning journey. My name is Dr. Rami Shaheen, international subject matter expert in transformation and intelligence transformation, working closely with different organizations around the world and different international tech organizations and companies. Have three registered inventions in technology, worked closely with governments in UAE, Jordan, KSA, Egypt, Bahrain, Japan, Denmark, UK, Turkey, to build their transformational plan using AI and future management tools or emerging technologies. Have different use cases on accelerating the transformation using robotics process automation and hyper intelligence. Awarded as the most influential consultant in Middle East for AI and future management tools. Now, let's start out talking about one of the main pillars that build the ecosystem of the Industry 4.0 and the transformation. Now we're going to talk in our expected cognitive accomplishment about robotics and RPA in a glance. We'll talk why we implement RPA, how to implement RPA, building your own team for RPA for your particular organization, and let this team apply certain transformation policy to implement RPA. Sample of RPA solutions that can be utilized during the transformation journey, and I will shed the light on hyper intelligence and how we're going to use hyper intelligence as the next level of RPA. RPA is one of the most important and essential tools that eliminate any routine job, and it's the new revolutionary skill that will be acquired through that the technologies to the human being ecosystem in a way that will minimize any routine job and optimize the normal long operations that take place in your organization. Uh, if we want to mention robotics in general, we can differentiate between the RPA and the normal robot system by the locomotion inputs and by the a mind or a bot that will interpret and transform any process that take place in your organization into a routine task that can be accomplished through this bot. Now, what we mean by robots, by the way, and what we mean by RPA in general. How are we going to use it? Robotics in general is a motion and an activity detector to your environment. And usually we represent the robot by a physical presence of this robot that will interact with digital information around us to reflect it on a virtual actions on our physical activities. So we need to use sensors in order to recognize these objects, lights, temperature, sounds, whatever around us to allow this robot to take a required action. So it's more than a reactive solution that will help us to interact with our environment through a certain or a sample of actions. Um, Basically, we will go with the same process diagram, which is input, process, output, that will move and let the robot take the required actions from sensing to movements to generate energy required for us to have the certain required level of intelligence that will be developed or will be implemented as a certain action or a certain kind of action to take place during the cycle of operation for the robot. So, in order to have a sensing, we will need to understand the external environment to interact with it through these sensors that will be placed into the body of robot, and it will take us to a level of human sensing of the external environment. Robot can detect all these kind of actions or objects through detecting with a particular kind of sensors, the light, the motion, the sound, and so on of activities. Movement, it always and we are in a revolutionary phase of building the movement of such robots through either having the wheels for the robot or a real built legs with a special kind of technology. Um, for sure we need a source of energy for our robot in order to move and to be able to implement any kind of task. The intelligence part, which is one of the most crucial part in the robot, it's a part where we have a certain line of programs that will inform the robot how to act and react and how to develop the reaction with time. We call it artificial intelligence. And now people and companies and entrepreneurs around the world, they are working to reach what we call it the singularity program, which is using a very complicated convolutional neural network and different kind of extreme machine learning algorithms to build a mind that will learn by itself, or an intelligence that will learn by itself and will be developing different functions accordingly with this intelligence. So these are the main features and the main components as well for a robot with a physical body, arms, and legs, or even a robot that can speak to us in different situations. And this is one of the main differentiator between robotics and RPA. Now let's differentiate in a different way. We're gonna talk about robot by locomotion, which is location and motion, and robot by application, or robotics by application. So robot by locomotion, the shape of robot is very important. The features is very important. The way the robot move or react is another very important feature for locomotion systems. These types of robot always reflect a certain animation or acts on certain actions. On the other hand, we have the robot by application, where we're gonna talk about the RPA, our topic today, the robotics process automation. This is a hybrid system that can be used through a bot, what we call it a bot, which is an intelligence that is directed to a particular task. For example, I want to move from A to B every day from A to B. So this task will be accomplished and completed by robotics by application, or what we call it the RPA. So this type of robot will not take care of the shape of robot, how the robot will interact with objects. No, we are talking about certain kind of routine jobs or applications that can be taken place through this kind of intelligence, what we call it the RPA. And this is a very important differentiation between these two types. I thought it's very important, guys, to know about these two types and different, so we'll be able to identify and differentiate between these two types in our daily activities and in our routine jobs in any particular organization. Now most of the organizations, when we mention robots, they think we are talking about a physical robot that will say hi, bye, and all these actions. Basically, our main concerns now is to build a highly intelligent routine task and activities that can be accomplished through a robotics by application system, or RPA. So that's our main concerns, and that's one of the most important pillars and technologies that will transform the organizations from the digital transformation level into the intelligence transformation level. And basically, when we want to move any organization or even a country or a government from a digital transformation level to intelligence or transformation level, we need to consider eliminating the routine jobs or tasks in any ecosystem. So we need to know that this system is not, or this tool is not isolated from all the other technologies that we already discussed before in my previous videos with and sessions with Tedra Academy, or with the word ecosystem. So as you know, guys, the industry 4.0 is reflecting three main pillars: physical, digital, and virtual. These three pillars will interact through different technologies. On the same hand, integrating these technologies is very important. So integrating why it's important, it will allow us to build the competitive advantage for our tool, so for our tools in general. So RPA is not differentiated from these tools and is part of the ecosystem. So basically, the RPA, if we want to add more features on our RPA, we need to use some other kind of tools, such as the AI skills, NLP, computer vision, and so on. And it will always add the RPA and take it to the next level in terms of features. We can integrate the RPA with machine learning as well. So we'll use these arithmetic operations to build the logic that will take the routine job into another level and will consider different types of exceptions. Long running workflows, when we have integration with more than one entity, for example, and we need to still build the RPA between these two entities, putting into consideration that these two entities had different maturity level in terms of AI and future management tools, we're gonna use the RPA with the long running workflows. Process mining, native integration, advanced analytics, as well as another features that our tools that can be integrated to draw certain conclusions for our process or for some other maybe services of the value chain in general, and for sure advanced analytics to build a smart big data and direct data platform with the RPA interference to drive certain conclusions. Now, okay, what is the main objectives from RPA in general? Okay, in this course, we're gonna define the RPA, explain the impact of it on digital transformation era, map and assess the processes, and it's a very crucial and important part of the RPA, or the way we build the RPA, because the way we build the process, fitness, complexity, and some other factors will always be considered in order to automate and hyper automate the processes around the ecosystem. And then I'll talk about the main stages and typical RPA journey, and then I'm gonna fine tune it according to the latest leading practice that we already implement with the different organizations around the world, and how, for example, these stages will be affected by this utilizing RPA in a smart city, or utilizing it in military sector, or so on. Then we're gonna explain what we mean by hyper automation or hyper intelligence, which is related to the RPA, and it's taking this whole industry into another, or this tool to another whole level in terms of implementation. Again, we need to differentiate which task should be covered by humans and which other tasks should be covered by robots. Whenever you are talking about data collection, data entry, storing data, it all needs to be covered by robot, because the redundancy is zero, frequency of error is zero, and the way robot will deal with exception will be faster than a human being. Then what the human gonna do? Are we gonna chillax and lose our job? First of all, you can, as we said earlier in our previous sessions, you can't lose your job if you will not lose your job if you develop your competency assurance management system. So if you acquire the new competencies required for a human being to accomplish certain tasks, then you're not gonna lose your job. So what kind of value activities that required from a human being to be performed in order to integrate the results between the machine and the human. Any face-to-face interaction intimacy jobs like nursing and these kind of things, complex strategies, these things, innovation, these all these things will always be covered by a human, and we can cover it in a separate session talking about the framework required for a human 2.0. The definition, or a simple definition that can be differentiate and identify the RPA in general could be it's a technology that allow computer software to mimic human actions. So basically this bot would mimic whatever actions we are usually taking in certain task or a process, from capturing the data to storing it to run certain application in certain cases, triggering responses that will always set the action on an on status to be performed. All these things will be covered through three main rules: non-invasion, easy to scale, and the future of proof. So RPA will emulate the actions and will operate application and will process data. And the main and most important factor and importance of RPA, it's working 24/7. So your system, your services as a government or as an organization will be available for your clients 24/7. And for sure, when we accomplish any task or we perform any process, we need to make sure that it's zero of error, and that's exactly what RPA can assure to the ecosystem, that we can perform all these things with all these features with zero error. Now, if I want to think about certain samples or examples of RPA, we can consider the payroll process for the employees. Usually, we need to track the presence, the salary, bonuses, rewards, allowances, taxes absent. All these things need to be considered, and usually there is a manual intervention from the human being after an each month to calculate such a process or to calculate the payroll for the employees. Now we can do all this in a matter of click, and the RPA will mimic the monthly activities on the payroll to draw for us a proper payroll sheet with zero error, and considering all the factors and all the financial attributes correlated and connected to our payroll. Uh, as you can see, guys, we can minimize time, optimize process, align the results, and for sure accelerate these results. All these things will be happening in a matter of click, and we can make it happen. We can make it happen in a matter of trigger. Client information updates, for example, and you know the KYC in the financial sector, I call it kill your customer. And it's usually referred to know your client or know your customer. In all CRM, sorting the client's information is a main issue, starting from geographical factors, any calls that has been received, any inquiries, updates on the national number, national security, social security number, changes that coming from different sources or different organizations that or government entities that interlaced with these informations. So the RPA will make sure that we can process all these batches and all these informations with a better performance and a higher data quality across all the applications in general. Another good example is customer complaints. How we deal with customer complaints, how fast we deal with customer complaints is another, we call it the predictor of companies. Why we not only being reactive on complaints, the RPA can be proactive as well on complaints. And there is, by the way, many telecommunication companies that enhance and perform their call center performance or their overall performance through having the RPA to sort out certain complaints for their clients. Now, okay, we know and understand the value of RPA. We know how to use or the main features of RPA. We give a good simple examples about RPA now. How I can transform a manual process or semi-manual process or even a semi-automated process into RPA or under the RPA tools. By the way, the decision of automating or having a robotics process automation on a certain process will be affected by different factors. These factors, we call it the process fitness and the process complexity. Process fitness, in order to make a decision on a particular process, either it will be going into the RPA or not, we need to predefine the logic of this process. We need to understand the exception rate in this process. So we will rank this process or we'll categorize our organization process into main four pillars. Either it's manual and non-repetitive, or it is manual and repetitive, or it is semi-automated, or it's fully automated. In each and every case, we'll have a different set of actions. We'll not forget that if we want as well to integrate the RPA with AI, we need to categorize the actions in different way. Usually in governments, we categorize the operations and process into simple operation, tactical operation, complex operation, strategic operation, and unique operation. These five categories as well can drive the conclusion of a process fitness the same way we are doing it in the four types of process that we identified here. So if it's manual and non-repetitive, the importance of this process, we call it a unique process. So it can be differently performed by a human being. So we'll keep this on a different priority from the others. If it's manual and repetitive, then it's very important and it's very crucial and essential to put this process under the RPA and make it a fully robotized process in general. If it's semi-automated and repetitive, again, it will take an importance of an high level of or high priority or high level of importance to be under the robotics process automation. So we have manual, repetitive, and semi-automated. These two are on a high rank on prioritization. Automation or already automated, this kind of process has been already automated, so we can use the RPA to optimize this technology. So for the first one, we need to enhance. For the second and third one, we need to put it directly into the RPA and start implementation process on it. The automated part, we're gonna optimize on the processes. By the way, usually some organizations or even governments fall into the most common mistakes in process fitness, and they take the tactical operations, which should be monitored and controlled only, into the RPA as the highest priority, and this will cost them time, money, and will always lead us to misconfusion of the results that can be measured through our strategic objectives. Uh, Again, the process fitness that need to always be under the microscope and to be transformed with the logic, with its logic and repetition, is the manual and repetitive. So for manual and non-repetitive, we need to calculate different factors, the number of inputs, how easy it is readable, the process has no changes, and don't have many exceptions. These are very important factors that need to be considered for this particular category in general. So we have different type of processes based on a process fitness only. We have no RPA action will be taken, semi-automated action that we need to be transformed, high cost RPA, which is non-repetitive and manual, zero touch automation, which is the next level that we are trying to achieve in our ecosystem. Now, the other new attribute that need to be considered when we build the RPA is the process complexity. The process complexity usually have different pillars and different attributes that will identify the complexity of a certain process. So we first identify the type, then we identify the complexity. Together, they will give us the direction on how to transform and what needs to be transformed in terms of RPA. So number of screens, this is the first factor, first important factor. Type of application, this is another important factor that we need to work on. So number of screen each for when you conduct any service, there's a number of screens that you go through whenever you conduct this service. So the number of service is very important to be considered to identify the complexity, as with higher number of screens means higher number of capturing the information and process and configuration required to process automation or robotics process automation. The other main attributes: type of application. Some type of application can be automated easily and integrated easily with RPA, such as Office, Java, and some others. But some other applications might require more efforts to capture the process and to capture the number of screens in general. The third main important factor is the business logic. Complexity always increase with decision points in the business logic. So whenever we have a different number of scenarios, we have a higher level of complexity, and this is one of the most important factors that will always let us achieve the quick wins in our organization. So whenever we have a higher business logic, higher complexity, then the prioritization of this process will go at the bottom, and we'll start with the quick wins one. Type and number of efforts. As we said earlier, that in some cases we have one standard input, such as, for example, the payroll, the invoice, the complaint forms, and so on. But in some others, we might have a non-standard input that can take the complexity level into a new level, and it might take us it might take some more time to implement RPA on such process. Now, let's talk about how we're gonna implement and the way or the roadmap to implement robotics process automation in general. Basically, the usual process of implementing, or the usual phases of implementing RPA in your organization, will start by discovering the status in which we gonna identify, as we said, the level of complexity, the logic, the number of screens, the process types, the clustering and categorization according to the strategic, tactical, and operational level, to the operations and processes. And then we're gonna differentiate between the quick wins and the medium efforts and high efforts RPA process. It will give us a glance on a clustering methodology and how we gonna start doing such a process. For sure, in the discovery phase, we need to have our team ready in a place. Our A to F team, A to F, I believe, I explained in many previous projects with many previous sessions with Tedra, which is activators, browsers, creators, developers, executors, and facilitators. These are the main six roles that will always work together in order to reach the intelligence transformation in our organization, and will help us to implement AI and future management tools in a very effective manner. So all these things need to be prepared in the discovery phase, and the main output of the discovery phase will be the implementation plan and the team required to implement such a process. On the second level will be what is the policy of implementation. We're going to talk about the policy of implementation later on in next few slides, and we will have to understand or identify the right tool to implement the RPA, as there is many tools around the world. Then we're gonna start building all this, putting it in one place, and start capturing the process based on our prioritization and clustering. It will take us to a way of managing the exceptions, managing the business logics, managing what's going on in a certain process, or maybe optimizing certain process. Then we're gonna start running the RPA or the bot in different processes, and will be under testing, or what maybe waterfall testing, or prototyping in a way or another. So after we run this process, we're gonna start making sure that everything is running well and smoothly, and then we're gonna engage the employees to be part of the ecosystem. Usually, in the engagement level, we re-identify the competency assurance management system and the way we measure the KPIs and business process indicators for the organization, and we're gonna talk about it in a different session. How to build the right KPI using technology, on or when you use technology such as robotics process automation, how you identify the new KPIs that might affect the overall ecosystem to reach a challenging results according to the EFQM framework, or the fourth generation framework, and they are identified under the UAE government. On the same hand, how the job description will get affected, which will as well reflected on the performance appraisal and all these things. As we said, we're gonna differentiate between any routine job that will take place and any exceptional jobs in a particular industry. Usually, telecommunication will get affected by the way we implement RPA. In telecommunication now, almost everyone is on the hyper intelligence level. They are not only on the RPA. The RPA phase is already completed and accomplished, and they are into dealing with exceptions and tactical operations with between organizations, or between different separated entities, to make it one and to make it under one action, where removing silos and accelerating the overall routine processes with different maturity level for different enterprises around the same ecosystem or under the same company. Then we're gonna measure the effect of such a process. There is a common managerial mistake here. Usually, they count only on KPIs to measure the overall effect of the RPA. The best way to do such a thing is to measure the KPIs, the critical success factors of the project, and the business process indicators. These three together will be able to draw the results and conclusion of the RPA roller coaster effect on the overall ecosystem. These are the main milestones or the main phases that we usually consider in order to implement a proper plan or an effective plan for implementing RPA in our organization or in our ecosystem. Now, we mentioned the A to F team, and we need to know that when we implement the RPA projects under the executors category, we said activators, browsers, creators, executors, developers, facilitators, and under executors, we'll have a sub inherited team that will be part of the execution team in the RPA, and we'll have a different roles for these people, which is RPA developer, a person who are responsible to capture the processes and to capture the manual and repetitive process, put it into the action using a certain tool, and make sure that the bot is working and capturing the right information at the right time with the right outcomes. Solution architecture is the person who are responsible of integrating different solutions together in order utilizing the RPA to get the required action. Business analyst will always require the process analysis and whatever the scope of department required to be identified in order to reflect it on with the RPA developer into the system utilized for the RPA. Implementation manager are the person who will take a place to implement the RPA after we issue it, or we develop it or build it, and make sure that this RPA is working accurate with a high level of accuracy, and with the right set of attributes that will measure the effectiveness of RPA, including the BBI, the critical success factor, and the KPI. Infrastructure engineers, sometimes we might require some changes or development, or maybe integration or utilization, or updates for our infrastructure in order to integrate it with the RPA and make it part of the ecosystem in general. RPA support is the person who will always support any minor errors or mistakes in the overall ecosystem, or the person who will coordinate between all these group member as a guild support. We call it the guild support for the overall team. We'll not forget that whenever we're gonna implement RPA, we're gonna build the team of executors in guilds, and we will not build them with a very rigid structure. We need to build them in guilds to make sure that the implementation process is agile, effective, and achieving its result with the required change management constraints that we need to put into our consideration whenever we implement such technology. Uh, I talked in the discovery phase about we need to identify our policy of implementation, or the approach we implement the RPA. There is two main schools for implementing RPA in organizations, and there is two main schools or two main approaches that will let us work on the RPA for a particular government, or even corporate or entity. We have either will have the company driven approach or the employee driven approach. The company driven approach, we will have a particular dedicated team working under what we call it the RPA Center of Excellence, which is part of or under the big umbrella of AI and FMT Center of Excellence. This team will manage the automation process as a centralized team, and will find the best processes to be automated, cluster the processes, finding the complexity, use the professional tools and required methodologies to transform such a process, and it will always drive by the automation cycle that we already discussed earlier. The other one is the employee driven approach, and where we empower the employees to use these tools, such as, for example, UiPath, Kofax tools, Automation Anywhere, Bluebirdsm, and some others. We will equip the employees with the knowledge that will help them to utilize this tool, and we'll examine their work, and we'll check and propose with them the required automation. Usually, this method is a time-consuming method. So, if we are working under accelerated method, or under accelerator, or business accelerator, or we want to achieve the automation process or robotics process automation in a less than time lead time than usual, or if we want to accomplish this process and integrate it with other technologies, I don't highly recommend the employee driven approach, as it will take time to be developed. I thought we need to talk about one of the tools that will help us to build an RPA. And hope so. Next time I will be discussing more on the RPA, and I will explain some other levels of how to build the RPA and how to capture the process. Today was just a holistic view on how to analyze things and how to use it. So what we can see here is an interface of UiPath Studio X, one of the tools that can be utilized to robotics process automation for any process we have. We have the interface is UIUX is almost common for most of our or for most of the RPA systems around the world, or application or platforms around the world. They are using almost the same way of building the UI or UX, or the same methodology. As you can see on the top of the screen, you can see the toolbar where we can cluster the projects under projects, where we can take a notepad and manage it. We can where we can manage and extract plugs in and packages. The application web recorder is where we capture the process. If you all you need to do is to press on record the button and start doing the action, or the process that you are trying to capture. The system will capture it and put it into a workflow for you that are easy to implement and easy to uh, uh, to uh, to edit. Um, Usually after we do such a thing, we can test it through the button run, and we can publish it and make it live through the publish button. Now this is the toolbar. On the left side we can see the activities bar, where we can see all kind of resources and activities that can be automated in terms of data, excels, assets, PowerPoints, mails, file and folders, applications, platforms, user browsers, and so on. On the right hand, we have what we call it the data manager, where we can change certain attributes and the process assets, queues, and connections in general. As I said, this is a very easy process. All you need to do is to download UiPath, for example, and press the record button and start doing the action, and then press stop. It will record all the actions in the main body in the middle. UiPath is one of the effective tools that can be utilized. We have some other kind of tools that can be utilized in, for example, Kofax. You have Blue Prism. We have Automation Anywhere, and some other famous tools. So why we you consider UiPath? Just it is easier in terms of how to for beginners and for new learners, on how to deal and analyze with the process automation in general. Now I want to talk about one more thing, that utilizing these tools is not enough when you are dealing with different organizations with different maturity assessment, with different maturity level. We talked earlier about implementing AMA for different organizations. So let's say we have organization A that is on a nascent level of automation or nascent level of transformation, and we have entity B, which is on operational level of maturity. So if we want to integrate these two together, we need to consider more factors, and we need to consider more exceptions, and we need to integrate the RPA with other tools. And this is what we call it the hyper intelligence, which is the new trend of utilizing RPA with some integrated with other technologies to deal with the different maturity levels around the ecosystem that we have. By the way, when we want to implement RPA on smart cities, for example, we need to consider the integration of RPA with other future management tools or emerging technologies, which will drive the conclusion into a realistic PBI, KPI, and CSR. Or critical success factors. These three things need to highly prioritize in term of how we gonna implement in the smart city, how we gonna automate in the smart city, or how we gonna move into the hyper intelligence part of the smart city in general. Um, I would like to thank you for such opportunity. Allow me indeed to draw my appreciation, and I would like to thank Tedra Virtual Academy again for such opportunity. We need all to consider RPA in our daily and routine activities. As we said, we need to develop our competencies. I highly recommend working on getting international certificate that will let you understand this kind of technology, such as IDLE, International Artificial Intelligence and Future Management Tool Driving License, and there is some other courses that can be available on the providers academies such as UiPath Academy, Kofax Academy, and so on. And these kind of knowledge will develop the competencies or the competency assurance management systems for your organization and for you as an individual. Usually, RPA will always upskill the capabilities and develop the capabilities of your organization, and it will take our ecosystem into another level. That's to sum it up and sum up whatever we talked about. I would like to thank you again indeed for your time, and have a nice day.